Hello, it's late, but I wanted to do some profiling tonight. I want to do three profiles: two exceedingly great men, and I want to profile the enemy. I touched on some things on episodes 4 and 5 that I want to come back on because I want to make sure the knowledge is complete and you see a picture. I want to draw a picture. So I want to start off with Abraham and Moses. I like to profile them for several reasons. For one, their ministry, or they came into purpose late in life. Two, they came from very jacked up home lives, backgrounds. So I want to draw the parallel that it doesn't matter what your sins were, what you did in the past, how you grew up, what was your family history or background, matters not. All that matters is that you have a deep and abiding love for God and reverential fear. And to know that when He is down for you, when He is with you, no matter what trials, tribulations, wars, or battles that you go through, He'll bring you through. And this is evident in these men's life. Now, a lot of the information that I am going to bring to you is not found in the King James Version. They're from Jewish writings, Jewish historical writings. Now, I have an older brother. And when there's information that I need to know about the family, someone in the family that preceded me, or my mother, he's 16 years older or more than I am. So he has a lot of information that I don't have. As Christians, the Jews has a lot of history and a lot of information that we have not sought after. So, saying all that, I'm basically taking this information from two historical writings. One of them is called the Book of Jasher. Now, the Book of Jasher is mentioned twice in the King James Version. One of the times it's mentioned is during the wars after Jericho, and I believe it was after Ai as well, with Joshua, when he commanded the sun and the moon to stand still so he can finish whooping that tail and gaining dominion over the land, the promised land that God promised them. So, the book of Jasher is mentioned there, and it's mentioned in Kings or Chronicles, but it's referenced twice in the King James Version. There are many books that's even mentioned in the King James Version that we don't have. Do not be afraid of knowledge. He said to ask, seek, and find. We have to not be afraid of the gaps or the hole. He tells us that He gives us revelation in part. You're going to have to go out after them other parts, either through the Holy Ghost or through research and study. And now we're in a time that Daniel spoke about where information is vast. So if it's something that you want to know, if you keep looking, you're going to find it. He'll bring it to you. He'll bring it to you all the time. I've always been one to question when I read the word and something was missing. I didn't just read over it. Something missing. What happened here? And I laid on it until He told me what happened, or showed me, or led me to other scriptures that filled in that gap. So here we go. Abraham bin Terah. Now, Abraham's father name was Terah. He was a very high respected official in the king's court, which was Nimrod. That was the one that was responsible for building the Tower of Babel. Well, when Abraham was born, he was celebrating with some of his cronies from the temple. And there was a sign in the sky that a great leader was born that night. So, after they got sober and went back to work the next day, they told the king. So the king called Terah to his court, told him bring that baby to him. And that he would sell the baby, that he would pay for the baby. So Terah asked for 3 days. He was granted 3 days. And he went and got a baby from a handmaid, one of the servants that was there, and delivered that baby to the king. And the king dashed that baby on those steps, bashed his head. So the king thought that that was Abraham. Well, Terah was a high priest, and he served many gods. Now, the gods in Babylon, in the Mesopotamia area, they basically worship luminaries, sun and moon and stars, constellations. And they had temples in their own home. Well, Abram, at that time, started thinking and meditating and understanding that these are wood, these idols, they don't eat, they don't speak, they don't do anything. They're dumb idols. So he started questioning his religion, his father's religion, and he ended up I'm going to have to shorten the story, but please go and get the book. Destroying all the idols in the temple, and the largest idol there, he took the axe and put it in the idol's hand and went back and told his daddy that the idol had got mad at the other ones and killed him. So Terah was furious with him. And during that time, if there was a dispute, it was always brought up before the king. So Terah forgot, or was so outraged. Maybe he was just a little stupid, I don't know. But he went and told the king and complained about what Abram did. And the king found out that Terah had lied to him and did not give him the baby that he requested so he could murder the baby. So the king tried to annihilate Abram at that time and stuck him in a furnace. Now Terah lied to the king again and told the king that he was just advised poorly by his oldest son, Lot's father. So the king requested that he come. He put him and Abram in a fiery furnace. So the furnace was not the first thing, and they stoked that furnace for 3 days. Well, Abram did not get burned, neither did his clothing smell of smoke. And so at that point, they became frightened, and he came out alive. However, Terah decided that it was time to go. But Jehovah, the great I am, had began to speak with Abraham, and he told him to leave Mesopotamia. Now, we don't get that in the Old Testament, but back in Acts, when Stephen was getting ready to be stoned, he talked about when Abram was called out of Mesopotamia by God. Now, at that time that Abram was called out of Mesopotamia, he was 50 years old. 50. And he was called out with his family. He took Lot, his nephew, because of course he didn't have a father. He was an orphan at that point, and his wife Sarah. Now Sarah was amazing in herself. You know, we talk about Abraham being the father of faith, but Sarah was a mother of faith, and she was the example of a helpmeet and a godly wife. Now, I'm gonna do a show on Abraham and Sarah, but let me just say this: how many of us, how many women would leave their home, their city, their friends, their family, and go someplace? They don't even know where they're going. You're just gonna pack up and get on a camel. And you ask your husband where we going. He say, I don't know. It ain't gonna go down like that most of the time. But anyway, not to short Sarah, because she was absolutely amazing. And Abraham, now Sarah was Abraham's, what we would call half sister. She was the daughter of Terah, but her and Abraham did not share the same mother. And he was 10 years her senior. So as they traveled, not knowing where to go, just being led by the Spirit of God, he went around making proselytes, turning people from idol worship to the worship of the one true God everywhere he went. And these people actually traveled with Abraham. So when he went to Egypt because of the famine in Haran, he told Sarah was so beautiful that he put in a trunk on one of the occasions. But long story short, it was 50 years of traveling, living as a nomad, leaving a home, a family, a way of life, and going into the unknown. 50 years he wandered. 50 years from the time that God told him that he would become a great nation and that he would be the father of many nations. He believed God and he became a friend of God. And that should be our ultimate. I know it is my ultimate goal, is to be a friend of God. And it takes great faith and fortitude. It doesn't mean that he did not come from a bad background. His father was jacked up. He married his half-sister. He was an idol worshiper. So it doesn't matter what your background is or what you did. If you submit to God, he'll use us and make something great out of us. I think that is so fantastic. Now, the second guy that I like is Moses. Now, at 18 years old, Moses wanted to know who his people was. He knew that he was adopted. And according to ancient writings, well, the King James Version tells us that he did not want to speak when God called him on Mount Sinai and told him that he was chosen to deliver the Israelites out of Egypt. He didn't want to go. He said he didn't speak well. Well, the backstory of him not speaking well was, here again, you have the priest of the court, the advisors to the king, and knowing that there was a rumor or a prophecy that a deliverer would be raised up to set the Israelites free, and that Moses was that child. And at this time, he was an arm baby, and the king was fond of him. But one day in court, he took the crown off the king's head, the diadem off the king's head, and placed it on his head. And so that was all Jannes and Jambres needed. Now, Jannes and Jambres is Balaam's sons. If you remember Balaam was always the one that was called upon to curse Israel. His sons was Jannes and Jambres, those sorcerers, magicians, sorcerers, magi. It's all the same. And so an angel of the Lord appeared because to dispel that notion that he had usurped the crown from the king as an arm baby. And they put a test to the baby to make sure. They put a piece of coal and the crown and laid it next to each other. And as he went to grab the crown, the angel pushed his hand away and he grabbed the coal and put the coal to his mouth. You know, babies always, how they feel, they put things in their mouths, and that's what marred his tongue and had a slight speech impediment. Oh. Well, anyway, so that's the backstory on the speech impediment. But at 18 years old, Moses wanted to go and visit his people, like we all do. Now, let me put a pin in it right there. He was adopted. Even though he was adopted and well taken care of, back from the beginning of time, people are having a difficult time with childhood things. I know male and female alike, over 50 years old, half 100, and still messed up because they were not raised by their biological parents or parent. So that is a big deal. But we have to be grateful for what God has done for us, no matter where we are. It is in line with the purpose of your life. You can use it for your good and learn from it. Well, anyway, so the Egyptians, what they would do would go down to Goshen. And if they saw a woman that they wanted, they took her. It did not matter if she was married, single, young, old. They did what they wanted to do. Now, this has always been a part of warfare, to disseminate a culture or a people. The men would always come and rape the women, and they would have these babies. And after so many generations, you lose the identity of the culture. It's lost. Well, they were doing that in Egypt as well. So Moses visited his folks. When he killed, murdered the Egyptians, this is what went down. An Egyptian came into the man's house, tied him up, and took his woman in front of him. When Moses found out about it, when the man pleaded his case to Moses, and that Egyptian was still there, a righteous indignation rose up in him. And that's when he murdered the guy. So to us, it looks like murder, but without the backstory, you really don't know what went down. Because if you have whatever that is in you, that you hate an injustice. I hate an injustice. I hate a bully. I hate someone who rides roughshod of another person. So I definitely understand. He just could not stand to see that injustice done. So he did what he had to do, or what he thought he had to do, and he ran. He was 18 years old. 18 years old. Now, Moses did not start his ministry when he was sent in as a shepherd over Israel to deliver them out of Egypt. He was 80 years old. 80. Now, what happened between the time he was 18 and 80? Well, he was king over the Cushites. You got to fill in the blanks. You got to go look for the information. You got to fill in the blanks. If you get the whole story, you have a better understanding. God's history is amazing. The history of his people is amazing. Well, he was king over Cushites. And one of the things kings do, or did, some of them still do, is that they marry to solidify the kingdom. And he couldn't do it. Matter of fact, let me read something about Moses, how he honored God all of his life. Please pardon me while I look this up. Okay. I can't locate it right now, but let me tell you this. Because he would not touch or marry those women, he felt like he needed to leave, because that was the part or the role of the kings in that time. That's when he left and went to Midian. He was 66 years old, and he knew Israelite history. He knew the history of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and that they were upright men before God, and that he knew the story of Abraham when he sent Eleazar, his servant, to find a wife for Isaac. He said, don't bring me none of them Canaanite women. I might have to teach on the Canaanite women, so men, y'all know to stay away from them Canaanite women. But anyway, he knew that. And he kept that in his heart because he was a righteous man all his life. Yeah, he committed murder. Well, it really wasn't with murder. What would any just and righteous and pious man do? Sometimes you got to know when to turn the other cheek, and you got to know when to administer justice and judgment as well. Because without justice, there's never going to be any peace, and without a judgment, we will not have justice. So these men had obstacles. They didn't have a easy background or an easy life. They were men that had passions and feelings just like we did. They had jacked up parents like quite a few people do. However, they were overcomers. They loved God. They obeyed God. And both of those two men were known as friends of God. God spoke to Moses face to face. Oh, how wonderful. How wonderful that must be. To see his glory and speak to him face to face. So I want to bring these men to your attention and profile them, that they are no different from us. Times, dates change, times really don't. It's all the same. I believe Solomon said ain't nothing new under the sun. So that's the profile of two very extraordinary men of God.